We knew that we had at least 251 individuals. And interesting things started coming across once we started looking at them closely. For example, we noticed that the majority of them were young males rather than what you'd expect in a hospital for the distribution of the ages and the sex to be pretty much even. So that started us thinking about, what it is that we had here, and then of course when we started looking at the history of the site, it fitted in very well with what would have been expected. This was a hospital that had been created for, the name in Spanish was El Hospital de los Nuestra Señora de los Desamparados, the people who had nobody else to go to. And so this was like a hospital for people who were maybe sailors or soldiers.
So what kind of insights does this give us about the Spanish period that we didn't have before?
What it tells us is a little bit of what we knew already. Gibraltar at the time was a port, and there were people coming here from all sorts of walks of life, but many of them had had very difficult and hard lives. So for example, in some of the individuals you find that they have healed fractures in their bones. There's one individual who shows a blade wound on his head, and he survived it because it's well healed. So some very interesting things coming through.
You also mentioned this did show us something about the Moorish occupation.
Okay, so the historical sources that we go by always speak of Juan Mateos as being the first person to occupy the site that eventually came to us to be known as the St. Bernard's Hospital. But when we were doing our excavations, we found that below the period, the Spanish period where Juan Mateos was living, there's an even older period that suggests maybe part of the Moorish period.
And just how significant is this discovery?
Very important because, sometimes we have the historical tradition and the narrative that comes through us through historical written sources, and if you like, this is now the science supporting these. This is a perfect opportunity to look at a subsection of the people who were living here in post-medieval Gibraltar, a time which is quite quiet as far as historians go. These are the little nuggets of information, the little bits of the jigsaw puzzle that is Gibraltar, that we try and piece together.